With game week 37 being the final double game week of the season, you might still have your free hit chip remaining. And if you are, I have got a draft for you. Now, if you've seen a video of mine previously, you'll notice that the team selection screen on the right is a little bit different to what I've done previously. I've tried to upgrade my graphics. Please let me know in the comments what you think, whether what I'm doing currently is good or the bad. You'd prefer the old one back. Right, we're going to go through the team. Goalkeepers and defence. I've got Petrovic in goal. I don't necessarily think he's the best goalkeeper, but I think of the options available that I don't have a tripled up team with, basically, I'm thinking Edison potentially. I think Petrovic is the next best thing. And when you compare him to other goalkeepers that have a double game week, I think someone like Vicario, Dubravka isn't necessarily nailed, Vicario, Onana, Edison, they're all a little bit more expensive than Petrovic, and I think he offers a nice combination of price and expected points, not forgetting that he makes, Chelsea are doing all right at the moment, kept a few clean sheets on the bounce, doing okay in the league. I think that they've not really got much to play for. They've kind of upped their performance level. I think Pochettino's got the team playing in a kind of rhythm now. They're keeping clean sheets, and Petrovic, not only does he keep clean sheets, he also gets a decent amount of saves per game, which obviously bodes well for his points. And Cucurella, I think he's nailed down that left-back position now for Chelsea. We'll wait and see the news on Gusto. I do think if Gusto is going to play the first fixture in 37, he probably plays the second one. If we get good news that he is going to start that first fixture, I'd probably have Gusto in there instead. But right now, with the information we've got, I can't hang my hat on Gusto starting. So for that reason, I've gone for Cucurella. Seems to have nailed down that left-back spot for Chelsea. We all know he's a fairly attacking left-back. I just spoke when going through Petrovic. Chelsea are actually starting to keep clean sheets now. Dan Burn for Newcastle. I'm not overly excited by these defender picks, to be completely honest with you. I don't think there's a whole lot to choose from the double game week players, but I think Dan Burn is the strongest of the bunch from the Newcastle defence. I think Lewis Hall, Livramento, you could go for them, but I think with Trippier potentially coming back from that injury, he could replace either one of those two. And I don't think outside of Dan Burn, there is a Newcastle defender you can hang your hat on to start both games of the double, because I think Dan Burn will, provided, of course, he doesn't get injured. He also carries a decent amount of goal threat from set pieces as well, just with his size, right? I think the guy's 6'7". He's going to get on the end of some set pieces, and he could well get some attacking returns in 37. And finally, I've gone for Pedro Porro. Do I think he's going to keep a clean sheet? Probably not. But he's very good from an attacking point of view, or at least he has been this season. Tottenham at the moment are not playing all that great, I'll admit. But I think if you were to tell me, you're asking me to pick a defender who's got a double game week this week, I think Porro is the third one I would pick. So Pedro Porro, hoping for some attacking returns. You've got to think Spurs up their performance levels in upcoming game weeks, so he could do quite well. On to the midfield then, and I've got a midfield five of Son, Foden, De Bruyne, Palmer and Gordon. I think ultimately these five guys are probably the strongest five midfielders in the game for game week 37. Son, obviously with a double game week, not in great form at the moment for Spurs, but you just know the guy is such an elite finisher. The fact he's on the pitch for 90 minutes every game and takes penalties means he's got a chance of scoring in pretty much every game he plays, regardless of how Spurs play and Son does. The fact he's on penalties, he could well score in any game. Phil Foden, arguably the Premier League player of the season. I think of all the Man City players outside of Haaland, he's probably my favourite. I think in terms of minutes, comparing him with De Bruyne, he's probably a little bit better. I'd say De Bruyne, even though of course he's in the team, I think it makes sense to go for him. De Bruyne, his returns over the total game week, he might get more returns, goals and assists, but I think Foden, he will be more weighted towards goals, whereas De Bruyne will obviously be more weighted towards assists, and goals are more points bearing in FPL than assists, as we all know. So I think a combination of that and the fact that Foden is probably going to play more minutes, I'd actually argue that Foden is a stronger pick than Kevin De Bruyne. However, of course, Kevin De Bruyne is fantastic, right? And the concerns that you might have had about Kevin De Bruyne previously, injuries, rotation, etc. I think with Man City likely fighting for the title right until the bitter end, not having any competitions during the season at least that they're competing for. They've obviously got the FA Cup final, but that's after, I believe, the end of the Premier League season. I just think he's a fantastic option, and as long as he doesn't get injured, he's going to play every game. And we all know how good a set of form he's been in recently. I think that's only going to continue. It makes sense to go for him. I don't really need to say a whole lot about Cole Palmer. I think he's been the FPL player of the season by far. 6.2 million, and he's basically competing for the golden boot this season. I don't think you need to say any more about him. Anthony Gordon, not quite as good in my mind as Cole Palmer, although you look at the expected points, they're pretty much tied. Newcastle have a couple of really nice fixtures for double game week 37. They're really good from an attacking perspective. I don't think defensively you can hang your hat on Newcastle keeping clean sheets, but from an attacking perspective, they will definitely score goals in pretty much every game. There's a bit of a fact going around about Anthony Gordon not being as good away from home as he is at home. He's got one fixture in 37 away from home and one fixture at home. I'd agree with that. Obviously, the stats are not quite as good away from home, but I believe the away fixture is Man United. So, yeah, I think he'll be just fine. And finally then, my couple of strikers. I've gone for Alexander Isak, who is in just absolutely ridiculous form at the moment, and Erling Haaland, who is also in absolutely ridiculous form at the moment. I've got to be honest, if I'm on my free hit, I can't really look past these two players. I would suggest, if you want to go different, I would still pick Haaland, but potentially go for someone other than Isak. I think Haaland is by far and away the strongest captain this week, and if you're looking to make gains, I suggest doing so through your other positions rather than putting the armband on someone else. I think Wilson, he could compete with Isak. We all know Wilson's injury record. I would have said previously that when both Wilson and Isak are on the pitch, Wilson would have taken the penalty, but that kind of theory was disproven in Game Week 36. When both players were on the pitch, Isak took the penalty. However, he did miss it. So could that mean that Wilson takes the next one? That's an argument I would have. They've got very similar underlying numbers whenever they play. Both of them basically score a goal per game. They've got around 0.8, 0.9 expected returns per 90. I think there is more of a chance of Wilson playing down the middle than there is Isak. That's one of the key things I would say. And given that Isak missed the last penalty, could Wilson take the next one? I think those two things combined, if you wanted to go different, you could potentially pick Wilson instead. Likewise, Nicholas Jackson. He's in great form at the moment as well. Chelsea, a couple of semi-decent fixtures in Game Week 37. You could go for Nicholas Jackson as well if you want to go a bit different. This is kind of, I imagine, quite tempting. I haven't really seen what other content creators are picking as a Game Week 37 free hit, but I think this is going to be pretty template. Although you struggle to pick Nicholas Jackson given you got Petrovic and Cucurella already, and Palmer as well, who you'd obviously wouldn't want to sell Palmer. So you'd have to get rid of one of Petrovic, Cucurella to go for Jackson, which you might well want to do. So maybe Wilson is the easier differential to squeeze in. Finally then, just a quick whiz through the bench. Nothing too complicated about it. I've gone for Vicario purely because he's another goalkeeper with a double game week. Might go for Onana, or to be honest, Pickford's got Sheffield United at home. You could well just pick him. João Pedro, I think he's probably the best sort of 12th man you can go for. On pens for Brighton, I just don't think he's quite as good as any of the other 7 that I've got playing ahead of him. Lewis Dunk, you might as well go for him as a defender. He's going to play both games. And then Chris Richards of Crystal Palace just allows you to build the team, basically. 3.9 million, the cheapest starting defender in the game. You're probably not going to go that deep on your bench. You know, all of these 11 players I'd expect to start anyway. So you just pick him to fit everyone else in. All right, and that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please leave me a like rating. Let me know in the comments what you think of that team and if there are any changes you suggest to it. Yeah, let me know if you like the new graphics as well, whether you preferred those or want me to go back to the old ones. I quite liked it. Took a lot of effort, but I put the, the Premier League pitch in there, player pictures, and still use the draft time expected points. So took a little bit more effort when making the graphics, but I thought it just added a bit of spice to the video. So yeah, hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in my next video.